The Jewish Channel's Week in Review. Layoffs at one of America's largest Jewish organizations. Durban II might not be so anti-Israel after all. A Jewish job fair is barnstorming around the country. And Evangelical Christians are one source of Jewish funding that's increased in the past year. Hello, and welcome to the Jewish Channel's Week in Review. I'm Stephen I. Weiss. After significant Jewish protest led the Obama administration to pull out of the United Nations World Conference on Racism, it appears the conference might not be as anti-Israel as expected. The conference, which Jewish leaders have taken to referring to as Durban II, has seen Canada and the United States pull out over concerns of anti-Semitism. However, the JTA reported this week that a new draft resolution goes some of the way toward curing these concerns by removing specific reference to Israel as racist and an occupier. Despite that, the JTA said the new resolution does not go all the way toward meeting the Obama administration's conditions for participation in the conference. In economic news, 3 stories in this Week in Review reveal how the Jewish community is dealing with newly understood realities. Major layoffs, professional networking, and an influx of funds from the evangelical Christian community will be explored. First off, the UJA Federation of New York, with its more than $1 billion in assets, ranking it in the select few largest Jewish organizations in America, has announced layoffs of 11% of its workforce, or 53 employees. Also announced are 20 open positions that won't be filled, in an overall effort to save $7.4 million and debit the effect of a predicted $8.9 million deficit for 2010. And with the national unemployment rate passing 8%, some in the Jewish community are tackling the problem with a series of networking events around the globe. Christian Eden reports.
It's a tough job market out there these days, but thanks to a new organization, the best way to find a new job might be a visit to your local synagogue's basement. More than 100 job seekers gathered Tuesday night at Congregation Ramat Orah on the Upper West Side of Manhattan for Parnasafest, a networking event aimed at helping attendees find employment with an international reach. According to event co-organizer Dave Weinberg, the idea is barely a month old, but has grown fast thanks to online networking sites like Facebook and Twitter.
And a month later, I'm happy to report that we have Parnasafest, these professional networking events planned in almost 20 cities around the globe.
Attending this week's New York edition, the second one held in New York in the past month, were several refugees from the battered Jewish nonprofit sector. Alan Schwartz spent 30 years at the Anti-Defamation League before recent cutbacks and admired the networking aspect of Parnasafest.
So it's an interesting group, a great new effort, I think, to try and get people together and sort of match them up. And Jewish matchmaking is an age-old profession, but I think here it's putting it to a new use.
Among those making that match was one of those who suffered when Yeshiva University made the largest staff cuts for a Jewish institution in this economy, laying off 60 in February.
I did make a connection. Actually, someone came over and complimented my shoes, and we started talking, and she asked me what sort of position that I was looking for. And I told her that I'm looking to get into fashion, and she said, well, that's really funny because my sister-in-law works for Vera Wang, and my mother works for Norma Kamali.
The event might have seen a larger turnout, if not for a stigma felt by some in the Jewish community surrounding job loss. That's why Ramat Orah's Associate Rabbi Moshe Groskat says having the event hosted in a synagogue setting is key.
Unless it's organized like this, people aren't just going to come out and say, hey, I'm unemployed. A lot of people in the community are embarrassed about it. They feel like there's something wrong. And the reason this is important is it says, there's nothing wrong. There's so many, look how many other people are in your situation.
And employers looking to staff up are finding they prefer the Parnasafest approach as well.
It really is important to try and make those connections rather than just put, an ad out on Craigslist. I'd rather give the work to someone that I can put a face to than to just the random internet community.
And that's why some hope Parnasafest will produce a greater sense of connection within the Jewish community.
If you can't put bread on the table, it doesn't matter if you're Orthodox, Conservative, or Reform, you're a person in need, and it's those basic things in life that make you realize what's really important.
And finally, there's at least one source of funding in the Jewish community that hasn't shrunk in the past year: Evangelical Christians. Rebecca Honig-Friedman has that story.
They may very well be the only Jewish organization that's seen fundraising increase in the past year.
We're this year still roughly 35–40% ahead of last year.
In a Jewish philanthropic world strapped for cash, the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, which collects donations from evangelical Christians to support Jewish causes, is all of a sudden very popular, with an annual budget of nearly $100 million.
Organizations are coming to us left and right with programs that they can no longer do, important ones.
With more traditional forms of Jewish philanthropy severely hit by the twin storms of a drooping stock market and Bernie Madoff's Ponzi scheme, Eckstein's organization is a rarity.
Our board has a policy of not having endowment funds. They feel that people's money should be going directly to the cause that we're asking. We don't have an endowment fund, so we weren't hurt by either of the situations.
And by relying on a network of hundreds of thousands of individual Christian donors contributing what they can, rather than on large gifts from millionaires and billionaires, as is the case with many Jewish organizations, Eckstein's fundraising has remained more nimble in this downturn.
Very different from the philanthropic marketing techniques of every Jewish organization, focusing much more on speaking to people's hearts and commitments and soul rather than on communal responsibility or tax benefit.
And in a way not entirely dissimilar to U.S. government bailouts of corporations, the IFCJ is stepping in to fund programs where more traditional Jewish sources of funding are no longer doing so. As one example, Chief Rabbi of the Ukraine Yaakov Bleich found he was no longer receiving the money needed to fund homes for impoverished Jewish children. The IFCJ stepped in to fund them through June.
Suddenly, you have these children's homes, which you have kids there, 24/7, 365 days a year, caring for their clothing, medicine, schooling, etc., and everything else. And where are you going to get funding for this thing? The fellowship came in now with basically it's Christian money to help save these Jewish children's homes.
Eckstein said he was happy to provide what he called a stopgap measure, but had harsh words for those in the Jewish community who haven't stepped up to fund programs like Bleich's.
I believe it's a shanda. It's outrageous that even after the Madoff situation, even after the economic situation, that the worldwide Jewish community cannot provide for the future of the entire Jewish children and youth in the whole former Soviet Union.
And while there's plenty of demand these days for IFCJ funding, Eckstein wasn't always so popular for his work in bringing Christian money to Jewish causes.
And that was the problem that we had with a number of groups. They would take the money, but not publicly acknowledge that it's coming from us or from Christians, and we stopped funding those at a certain point.
And in some cases, assistance to the poor was actually rejected because of the Christian source of funding. In one case, 3 communities in Jerusalem rejected a donation of winter clothing.
They prefer that their kids go without coats and boots in the winter rather than receive them from Christians.
For his part, Bleich says he has never had any problems working with the IFCJ, and that in these tough times, beggars can't be choosers.
And I question whether one has the right to refuse money from anyone at a time when you're talking about, really to save lives of people.
That's all for this week. For more news and analysis from the Jewish Channel, please visit newsdesk.tjctv.com. From all of us here at the Jewish Channel, be well. The Jewish Channel is available on cable, IO Optimum Cable Channel 291, Time Warner Channel 528, and Verizon Fios Channel 900. For more information, visit tjctv.com.